Joining us now, retired Army General H.R. McMaster. He was National Security Advisor during the early days of the Trump administration. He also served in Afghanistan and is now a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. General, good morning to you.
Good morning, Savannah.
It seems to me there are two issues here, and let's take them one by one. There is how the withdrawal was handled, and then there's the issue of whether the United States should have withdrawn from Afghanistan at all. So let's talk about what's happening right now, the execution of this withdrawal. The president has acknowledged that they were surprised by how quickly the Taliban took over. Should they have been?
No, they should not have been surprised, Savannah. You know, war is a contest of wills, and we did everything we could, it seemed, really across the last two administrations to deliver psychological blows to the Afghans that landed, I think, even harder than the Taliban's physical blows landed on them, telling them that we're going to withdraw, making concession after concession with the Taliban, not even allowing the Afghan government to participate in what became our capitulation agreement with the Taliban, you know, forcing the Afghan government to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth who immediately went back to terrorizing the Afghan people. So it should should not have come as a surprise at all, Savannah.
Well, let's talk about the withdrawal, the larger issue that we talked about. Your former boss, President Trump, after you left, did negotiate an agreement with the Taliban and agreed to leave, actually, in May of this year. President Biden agreed with President Trump on that issue and has decided to withdraw U.S. troops. And many Americans support that position. What do you say?
Well, Savannah, it should come as no surprise that many Americans support that position because we've had three presidents in a row say it's not worth it in Afghanistan. And the American people never heard what they needed to hear from presidential leaders, across those three administrations, which is really what is at stake in Afghanistan and what is a sustainable strategy, a strategy that will deliver a favorable outcome at an acceptable cost. I believe that the only time we had that kind of a strategy in place was at the beginning of the Trump administration. And then, of course, President Trump, as President Obama had and as President Biden did, prioritized our withdrawal over the achievement of any sort of worthy aim in Afghanistan. And I believe that aim was worthy, right? It was to deny jihadist terrorists a safe haven support base that they can use to again, conduct attacks on the scale of 9/11, which we ought to remember was the most devastating terrorist attack in history. And Savannah, we should have learned from that, but also from the precipitous withdrawal from Iraq as well. It was then Vice President Biden who called President Obama on the phone and said, hey, thank you for allowing me to end this goddamn war. Well, of course, the news flash today, as it was then, is wars don't end when one party disengages. Our enemies have a say in the future course of events. And what happened in Iraq, of course, is al-Qaeda in Iraq became ISIS, the most destructive terrorist attack in history. And we know in Afghanistan, despite our claims to the contrary by those who are deluding themselves, that the Taliban is completely interconnected and intertwined with al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups.
Well, let me ask you to respond, because one thing that the Biden administration says now is, look, President Trump negotiated with this withdrawal with the Taliban. We were stuck with it, and we agree in principle we wanted to withdraw. But having a residual force of 3,500 troops was not an option. If we had just stayed, there was no status quo option, in other words. If we had just stayed this summer and had kept a few thousand troops there, the Taliban would have started firing again on U.S. troops, and we would have been right back where we were. How do you respond to that argument? They said status quo wasn't an option.
Well, it was obviously an option. I mean, the Taliban violated this, this so-called agreement with them. It was an agreement between us and the Taliban that was embarrassing. I mean, it was basically, if you don't fire on us, we will not take action against you. And so we left kind of our Afghan allies hanging. Now, we did conduct some strikes during that period of time, Savannah. But I think what's really heartbreaking about this is we abandoned our allies, and we actually empowered the Taliban on our way out. I mean, the idea that we would have to adhere to an agreement that the Taliban was breaking. Remember, after we signed that capitulation agreement, the Taliban intensified an assassination campaign, killing journalists, killing any women political leaders and judges, bombing girls' schools, attacking a maternity hospital. I mean, Savannah, do we really think that the Taliban was adhering to the agreement? Of course they weren't, and we've seen that in dramatic fashion now. So, of course, I think that's it's a false claim, right, that we had no other option.
Ooh, the Taliban has certainly shown who it is over and over again. In the few seconds we have left, General, I just think about why we went to Afghanistan in the first place. I think about the 20th anniversary of 9/11 upon us. I think about the threat from terrorists and al-Qaeda. How do you judge that threat coming from Afghanistan now in just the few moments we have?
Yeah, it's much worse, Savannah. I mean, wars don't end when one side disengages. The al-Qaeda group and other terrorist, jihadist terrorists, 20 of which are in the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, are going to gain strength from this, right? A victory for the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is a victory for these terrorist groups. But, Savannah, I would say what we can do right now is we can get the civilian part of the Kabul airport open. We can provide a safe corridor, and we can help get Afghans out. What I haven't heard reported is that there is a massive private sector effort just waiting in the wings with charter flights, with pre-enrollments for Afghan women students in universities in third countries. We just need to get the airport open and force the Taliban to provide a safe passage to get people out. That should be our number one priority, I think, at this moment.
General H.R. McMaster, who served as National Security Advisor, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Savannah.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.